Hey there. Thanks for being here today. So I'm a bonehead. The videos that I have for you this week, I had actually already recorded and had them ready for last week where there weren't any videos. And the reason is because I never turned on the damn mic. So I'm sitting in the camera doing all this talking with my hands and there's no sound. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me what was going on. The only thing I conclude is that I did not turn on the microphone like I said, like a bonehead. So anyway, I want to get back on some emails and comments that I've been getting because I'm overwhelmed. I have a lot going on, so we'll see. I'll try to do as many of these as I can. Mike, how would you handle Nvidia's earnings? And I'm like, well, what's there to handle really when you think about it? Because I know where the question's coming from. Person may have a position, it could be up. What am I supposed to do because there's something on the calendar in the non existent future? Or the person has seen in the past that the company might have beat estimates handily, and so they want to get in on the action. They want to make a bet. And I would discourage you from trying to make bets around earnings because the truth is that despite what you might think that you have a feel for these types of things, nobody really knows until the company puts it out on the tape and it's released. You can fool yourself into thinking that you have a hunch just because in the past, and you can get burned very, very badly. There's one-time charges, there's forward-looking statements, there's top-line growth, there's control of expenses. What I know about Nvidia is they have a line of products that look like motherboards, basically, for which there's 35,000 different component parts that go into it, and they sell for whatever $200,000 to $250,000. I know some of you are probably out there and you know the exact numbers. That's not the point. What is the point is that when you have 35,000 component parts, all you need is one or two of them to not be available to really screw things up. That's happened with the iPhone. Then the question becomes is like how they've had a lot of runway, who's catching up from a competitor standpoint, and like with the iPhone, how many new iPhones do you need? I'm not one of those. I'd be still using the BlackBerry if it was supported, okay? iPhone's cool and everything. BlackBerry was the best smartphone that was ever made as far as I'm concerned. I don't care about apps. I don't need all that bullshit on my phone. Plus, it's a tracking device. Plus, they're all stealing your data and not paying you for it. At least if you're trading with a decent trading platform and you're putting up stops and limits, they'll give you a rebate for the love of God. So I would discourage you from trying to make bets if you feel like you have to and you just can't control yourself. You need to look deep within yourself and figure out what emotional needs are being met by your trading because you're really just using trading to fulfill some kind of emotional need. You could probably do it a lot cheaper playing the lottery because the expected value is probably the same. It's negative and it's probably close to being the same. If you have to do it though, because you can't help yourself, I would probably risk something small, like maybe 1/10 of 1%, so that this way you can't, when things do blow up on you eventually, you won't do any lasting damage to your portfolio. The Wall Street is littered with the brains of people who, decided that they couldn't go wrong, and they wanted to try to be like, I don't know, the guy, what's his name, Hello Kitty or something like this. I don't follow Reddit, so I don't know. I've just seen the name. I think he's being sued by the government. So earnings, interest rate cuts, any other types of events, elections, what's good for the market, what's bad for the market. This is all just armchair quarterbacking. And in my humble opinion, I've seen a lot over my 36 something years of experience, almost going on 40 years of market involvement. I've seen and heard everything. And so most of that stuff is there for spin. It's to draw your eyeballs because you have to remember the media companies aren't really in the finance business, they're in the advertising business. So I always break things down for myself and try to figure out, okay, what's the agenda going on over here? Why is there so much talk about Ben and Jennifer? Like, who cares? I hope they have peace in their lives. That's the best I can do. Otherwise, I don't need to see every waking thought that they may or may not have and what they're doing with each other or independent of one another. But people can't help themselves in the gossip racket, and it draws eyeballs, which increases advertising revenue, right? So I would focus on having a set of rules that you can replicate day after day after day. And if you do have a position and it's up and you're coming into earnings, the best you can do is follow your rules. I don't think you need to have an earnings estimate trading rule, right? Trade what your rules are up until the moment. If you have a protective stop, adjust it. If you're trailing structure, do that, right? If you add to your winners, follow those rules, right? Some of you get psyched out about what the importance of a particular date might be, and it's hard to really go back test and predict how those things can kind of go. In recent times, I've seen, before the split, I saw the stock trade up to 750 and then it trade down to whatever 675 on the day of an earnings announcement. So what I would do if I were you is not get psyched out about this upcoming event. I think the report's on like the 28th or something, but follow your systematized rules and don't worry about what's going to happen in the non-existent future, because all you can do is manage risk today. You can't manage the risk based on what you think is going to happen in any of amount of n days in the future. You see what I'm saying? So I would encourage you to stay present and focus on what you have right now. Don't worry about what's going to happen, because what could happen is you could end up getting knocked out of the trade before the earnings, and then you'd be flat. And then you'd have to, control your emotions and not make sure that you get caught up in the hype. Case in point, go back in time, look at the earnings announcements, and see what would have happened if you bought on the first day of trading afterwards, right? What happened in the aftermarket? So, for example, earnings are going to come out for sometime after 4 p.m. Eastern, as they normally would. What would happen if you bought in the aftermarket and even missed a $4 or $5 move? Now go back in time and readjust the stock for the 10-for-1 split and see what would have happened. Like, what do you really think you're missing out on? You see what I mean? Because there's probably enough time to still buy after the risk of a potential bad report is already gone. People don't like to think that way, but I think as traders or speculators, my humble opinion is that your first order of business is to play superior defense. Don't worry about what you can make. Your job is to keep your cash, and taking, putting on trades where you don't know what the expected value is and going on hunches. This is just rolling the dice. You're just flipping a coin. You don't know what you're doing. In my opinion, you shouldn't do it. You should try to follow some order of behavior that you can repeat day after day after day. Then that becomes your system. That's a reflection of who you are. And that makes things, it gives you a much more sober approach to the marketplace and not worrying about the fits and starts of earnings announcements and things that you can't really predict and nor can you control. Anyway, check out this video here.